Elliot's personal story has spurred her passions for the right to choose what one does with their own body.
My birth mother was 17 at the time of my birth, and she was raped, and I was born in the Bible Belt of the United States in this hamlet in Illinois. And I wonder a lot whether she had access to choice. I wonder whether her carrying me to term was because that is a choice that she came to after thinking about it and balancing her morals and her values and where she saw her life going, or whether she carried me to term because she didn't have access to abortion. And that's a really difficult place to sit in, right? To think about, would I have fought for my birth mother's choice? Because that would have resulted in me not being born and me not existing and having this life that I love. But when I really think about that question, would I fight for my birth mother's choice to have an abortion? Absolutely. Absolutely, I would fight for her right. Because that's her control over her body and her life, and that's a very personal choice to make.
From her interest in pro-choice issues, Aisling was drawn to the opportunity to perform in a production of the abortion monologues.
When I heard the call out for the abortion monologues, I was so excited. And there were so many people who auditioned, which I think just speaks to how many people in Kitchener-Waterloo are really supportive of conversations about choice, about why women have abortions, and why that's important for our community and nationally. So the abortion monologues is a play it's 23 different stories of women who have had abortions, and all the stories are completely different.
Aisling feels that the monologues are a way to open a door to a conversation that is highly stigmatized and to highlight that anyone who experiences this procedure has a unique story to tell.
The abortion monologues is really important because we don't often hear stories from women about abortion, period. It's a very stigmatized medical procedure, but I think the core of it is realizing how different each story is, that there's no one type of person who has an abortion, there's no one reason why someone has an abortion, and realizing that we can't place judgment on people until we know their story.
Aisling continued on with her efforts for pro-choice, spearheading a community course and basing her undergraduate thesis around the topic.
And one of those things that I've done was facilitate a community class last fall on abortion rights and reproductive justice. And my thesis work focuses on using performative arts. So that includes everything from stage performance to street art to, I would even argue that speeches and community education are types of performative art. So my thesis work is on performative art being used to destigmatize abortion.
Two topics discussed in her course that Aisling continues to be passionate about are access to abortion and reproductive health care.
I know that there's a myth in Canada that because abortion is legal, then everybody has access to abortion, right? That's not true. Abortion isn't actually legal in Canada, nor is it illegal. We just don't have laws governing abortion. So having choice is one thing, but having access is another thing. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of people in Canada who don't have access to abortion, whether it's because of their class background, where they live, what their race is, what their abilities are, what their gender presentation is. So there are a lot of factors that influence someone's access to abortion, even if in theory they have the choice to be able to choose abortion, if that makes sense for them. Abortion isn't a singular issue that exists in isolation from other conversations of reproductive health care. As we talk about abortion, we also need to talk about Canada's history of sterilizing Indigenous women forcibly. We also need to talk about how people have access to doulas or midwifery or alternative birthing care. We need to talk about rights of pregnant women. We need to talk about rights of queer pregnant folks. And when I say queer, I mean folks who don't identify as straight and don't identify within a gender binary. So when we talk about abortion rights and just abortion in general, we're amiss if we leave out of that conversation other forms of reproductive health care.
In Waterloo, I'm Sarah Manette for Talk Local.
Okay, and Melanie Banks is still in studio with us. We are just going to put a couple Twitter questions, comments rather, up on the screen for you so you can read that at home. The first one reads, if you have to insist that the abortion debate is over, doesn't that mean the debate isn't over? So thank you very much for that one. And the second one reads, yes, the debate absolutely should be opened. A country as progressed as Canada with no laws regulating abortion is absurd. So thank you for those. Melanie, what do you make out of that last comment there?
I find that an interesting comment, and I've seen that in a few different places, the claim that Canada is the only place that doesn't have some kind of regulation regarding abortion. And it's an interesting claim to make, but I don't think that's an argument for why we're doing it wrong. Just because we're the only country that's doing it a certain way doesn't automatically that, well, we're only Canada, so it must be the wrong way. Mm-hmm. It could be that we're pioneers and we just haven't realized it yet. So I think it's interesting that we're the only country that's doing this, but it's not a reason to think that that means it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and to say that the debate is over, but clearly if we have to say the debate is over, I mean, there's some merit to that as well, right? There's some people that just want to slam the door and close it, and clearly that's not happening, so.
The debate isn't over, and so that, like, why not talk about it? Talking about it is great, mm-hmm. but I think that politically speaking, our politicians have other things that they could be spending their time on that are more pressing to me mm-hmm. than them talking about this. But, you know, by all means, in the classroom is a great place to talk about it with your family, is a great place to talk about it with your friends, is a great place to talk about it. It doesn't hurt to talk about these issues, but our politicians need to focus on making sure that we're doing the best that we can for Canadians, and mm-hmm. I still think that if abortion is illegal, that's bad for Canadians, and so let's focus on making things better.
Okay, what would some of the ramifications be if, and she had a good point, not necessarily legal, but not illegal. So if criminalized, I mean, mm-hmm. what would that mean? What would some young women have to kind of go through if they were still bent on doing that?
Well, we end up really, in a way, attacking these women. So what's going to happen is that abortion will be criminalized. So that access is gone. So we still have the illegal abortion, the ones that many people, of course, die from and have complications from. So that will come back because mm-hmm. that's where we were before. But also, we're not addressing why it is that these women are pregnant in the first place and not wanting to have children. Is mm-hmm. it because we've failed to provide proper sex education in mm-hmm. our school system? That's something we could do. That would empower people.
Right.
Is it because we don't have a lot of support for women who have children? Is there something more we can do there? Canada has been critiqued for this in comparison to European nations. Is it because of the repercussions for a woman having a child with her career? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe there's something we can do about that. So all of these are things that our politicians should be addressing.
And such a wider issue than just.
And it would probably still decrease the number of abortions, which if that's the aim, then they're still working their way towards it, but they're empowering people as opposed to trying to take something away.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really do appreciate it. Do stay with us. We continue on with this conversation. Just need to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. Hi, welcome back. Talking about Canada's law concerning human rights before the moment of complete birth, which will then reopen or open or prompt discussion about abortion. So if you'd like to get involved in this conversation, either way that you feel about this issue, 519-893-6905 is our phone number. We're on Twitter as well, at TalkLocalWR. You can email us to talklocal@rogers.com. So joining us in studio, we have Shannon Day, who's the board co-president of Planned Parenthood Waterloo Region, and Jane Richard, KW President, Right to Life. So thank you both for your time this evening. Jane, right before the break, we had an interesting tweet that said, basically, if this were over, we wouldn't be asking that this were over. So assuming that you're on board and you're behind Mr. Woodworth's call to examine and to relook at this law.
Yeah, I don't think we should be afraid of this debate. If for whatever reason it's been brought to fore, whether it's philosophical or whether it's scientific, we should be prepared to examine all aspects of it. And I think all Stephen Woodworth is asking is that we revisit the law and how it pertains to personhood in our modern age today. We can't say that the law is the way it is, or the lack of it is settled. It's certainly not settled. I first heard Stephen's words last May at Ottawa at a March for Life rally, and he spoke what he said to over 15,000 people that were on the Hill that day demonstrating for rights for the unborn. It doesn't matter if abortion is going to be a result of that or not. I mean, that's the whole idea as far as I'm concerned. Personhood needs to be talked about in terms of medical scientific evidence. And certainly we have evolved since the time of this very archaic law. We've even evolved since the time of the women's movement in the 60s and 70s, when some secular reproductive organizations were saying that it's a blob of tissue and it's part of a woman's body. That's more like science fiction.
Okay. So
it's high time we had this debate. And I think, since 1988, when Bill 251 was struck down and left with women not having a right to abortion, but no law concerning. So the provinces had to step up and fill in the void. So we see all this deregulation, some provinces not wanting it, some wanting it. So this is the dilemma that we have today. We have to get more specific about what we're doing to unborn children today.
And Shannon, what's your thoughts on that? Because it is, I mean, thank you for your article that was in the Record, and looking at the criminal code myself, it's very technical, obviously, as law is. So does it really kind of explain what the issue here when we talk about an unborn child? And if a fetus, if this isn't to open the abortion debate, then why would a fetus need rights per se?
Oh, that's a lot of questions.
Yes, it is.
Let me start by talking about the issue of the 400-year-old law and how that bears upon the rights of the unborn. I actually think that we protect a whole lot more people when we work to support laws that are concerned with practical results, right? So either there's some kind of practical outcome that we are hoping for in seeking to change that law, or there isn't. If there's a practical outcome, then what is the practical outcome that we're hoping for, right?
Okay, yeah.
I cannot imagine any practical outcome intended other than addressing abortion rights in Canada. But the fact is, around the world, there's good evidence. There's no relationship between criminalizing or legalizing abortion and the incidence of abortion in Canada.